Hey, Catalyst crew. Welcome to episode 3 of Catalyst Corner. It's Thursday, so we have Jim F0123 Art with us on the show again. And we're going to talk about some pop culture and some movies and maybe a little bit of art. All right, let's get into it. All right, so Jim.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good. You know, speaking of art, this past couple weeks we lost two greats in the comic book art community.
It's been tough.
I mean, you know, George Perez.
That was kind of...
Which we knew,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he had terminal cancer, and we knew it was, you know, when he announced it, we knew it was coming. And
Even still.
And then Neal Adams was just a complete shock. But to find out he was 80 years old and was dealing with but he put out, I want to say a new cover like 2 days before he died. So I mean, he's even though he might have been sick, was still actively working, but to lose two childhood greats in a matter of like a week was pretty tough on everybody.
I think it's interesting to kind of, you know, look at Neal and the fact that he was sick, but he kept working.
Yeah.
Like there's someone that found their passion and just wanted to keep pursuing it until the end.
Yeah. And I mean, and what he was doing at 80 years old, you know, that's, you know, again, the complexity, just the overall absolute beautiful artwork at that age that he was still putting out right till the very end just is a testament to somebody that, you know, just doesn't come along all that often.
I'd like to think it also kind of gives hope to people that, you know, it doesn't, you know, you always hear about how as you age, you become blunt.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like that's always the case.
No. I mean, I think that if you have a passion for something and it's truly something that you love, I don't think age really matters. I think you do it till you stop doing it, which means
For some people, until you stop breathing.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and these two really, you know, I mean, obviously George had to stop a little bit prematurely because, you know, cancer does what cancer does. But I mean, here are two legends that were doing it right to the end, and they were going to do it to the day they were
unable to. Yeah. That's a tough loss. That's a tough loss in the art world, and the world's a little less bright without those two in it.
You think about it too, right? And you think about, you know, yeah, there's a lot of guys that aren't close to that age as of yet, but you're going to see more and more of the greats disappearing. And
it's scary.
Because what I don't know is I don't know who the new generation of greats are. You know, like, yeah, there are comic artists who are performing, and, you know, some of them do a fine job, and I'm not shitting on that. But when you talk about the absolute game changers of the industry, right? What happens when we lose them?
I like to think of it like movies. There's always going to be your Spielbergs and your Camerons and those titans that really kind of push the industry into what it is today. But there's room for the new class.
Oh no, there totally is.
What was your favorite Perez?
I would say I liked his Teen Titan. You know, I mean, I know he redefined Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, kind of the Wonder Woman that everybody really knows and loves, George Perez was the guy that transformed her into that. I just think that his Teen Titans, to me, because like he didn't really create Wonder Woman. He changed her, but he created Cyborg.
Would you argue though? Because to me, you know, for Batman, right? I don't think Batman for me became Batman until like the 80s.
And Neal Adams was a big piece of Batman becoming Batman.
But my point to it is that I think what George did with Wonder Woman, like he didn't create Wonder Woman, but he did.
He created, yeah. I mean, if you like the Wonder Woman movies, let's say,
Yeah.
that's based on George Perez's change to the mythos of who and what Wonder Woman is. So I mean, if you like that, and I agree, I think the '80s is really where a lot of your superheroes, if you're into that now, I think the '80s is where they became what you're appreciating now. Because prior to that, although they were great and there was a lot of great stories to anybody, X-Men, I think that the '80s and then into the '90s when Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane and them.
Well, that would be kind of your next generation, I
Right,
think.
exactly.
The '80s made the mold.
But yeah, I agree. I think that George Perez, when you really think of who Wonder Woman is, and if you think of modern day Wonder Woman, then George Perez is the guy that made her what she is.
That's a tough couple of people to lose in a short period of time, for
sure.
So, hopefully, you know how it goes, though. Well, someone will pop up and they'll take it to a whole new height.
I'm not discrediting any of the new young artists that are out there that are doing a fantastic job on carrying on those mantles. It's just that,
Oh, it's a tightening.
They're doing what the work of the forefathers that were before them, and we're losing the forefathers, and that is where it gets a little sad.
Yeah, and it's odd that that's kind of something that we're living. Well, a lot of times it's either before or way after, but
yeah, I mean, like Jack Kirby really was before us, right? I mean,
right, he's a legend.
We benefited from a Jack Kirby or a Steve Ditko, those type of guys, but we didn't, we really weren't living our entire life because those guys came before, and what they put out was kind of before us. So we inherited that stuff. But with guys like George Perez and Neal Adams, we kind of saw that stuff evolve, and we were, kind of there for it.
In a way, I think it makes the stories hit harder, too.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, and this is something I wanted to talk to you about because it's something I've been mulling over for the past week or so. I touched upon it on our last episode about superhero fatigue a bit, and I started thinking about it, and it's one of those things that when you get down to it, a lot of this stuff is for kids. And I think where the fan base gets angry is they're still making it for kids, and a lot of us, myself included, want it to be made for adults. Now, I think there's an opportunity there because I think you can take the DC stuff and curtail it more towards young adults and adults. But Marvel's going to be for kids. So I think, I don't know if everyone is feeling fatigue on the Marvel side of things, but I am. And I talked to someone that watched Doctor Strange, and they said it was good. A lot of Raimi, which is always a good thing. But it does kind of feel a little tired.
Well, again, it's here's my formula. You have to follow it. Now, I'm going to give you some creative freedom to get, here's point A to point Z. And I'm going to give you some freedom, but you have to follow the path set out. So all the tropes of what I want have to be hit. I'm going to give you a little bit of freedom in between, but you have to make it fit into this mold every single time. And that's whether it's a movie or whether it's the Disney Plus shows. Marvel has a formula that they're not going to change. And that's what made the Netflix shows so great, because they weren't that formula.
Well, Daredevil is for adult, period.
Punisher, Jessica Jones, all of it is for adult. And that's why the adults are freaking out over it being on Disney Plus.
But here's where I get confused, right? Is that those came out before the purchase went through, and they were doing well.
Yes.
So I'm not crazy when I say there is a very real market for these characters, at least some of them, to transition to adult-based content. I don't know if did you catch they did Hailstrom?
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't overtly good,
Right.
of a show, but talk about a relatively obscure set of characters that you can do in an adult-themed program. And it just was DOA because the deal had already went through.
Right.
And Disney was ready to scorch the earth on any type of adult content.
Yeah, and especially when Kevin Feige got his hands on the television content, right? Because he was only the head of movies, and then they had I think it's Jeff Loeb or Joe, I forget his name now off the top of my head, but there was another person in charge of TV, and Kevin Feige took over control of both and wanted everything then under the Kevin Feige way of doing things, so he canceled everything and then moved everything to Disney Plus and put his fingerprints on everything from that point forward.
But I will say that Kevin Feige oozes Disney.
Oh yeah,
like if
big
you
time.
just even the look of, he just strikes me as, it'll always be safe. And the thing is, I'm not discounting what he's done because it's incredible. We had nothing, and he's been able to turn it into this juggernaut. You like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. But I think, and again, as someone who's grown up with these characters, as you have, I need a little bit more than just a safe, escapist John.
Yeah. Well, let's say you're sitting at a restaurant and there's, what was it, Michael Eisner, right? And then Chapek and Iger, right? And Kevin Feige. Put them at a restaurant table, right? Can you really tell the difference of who is who, right? It's the same guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go business style, Eisner saved Disney from bankruptcy. But
right.
But aside from that, he was not a particularly effective CEO. I would say Iger, out of all of them, was the best CEO in the last, 30, 40 years, because look what he's done. You're talking about Lucas and Marvel. Chapek is trying to revamp the parks, but I don't think there's something about him that I think is off when it comes to running the company. I think he's very good at the park side of things, and I think we'll see the parks kind of transition to maybe more of a profitable wing again. I know with the pandemic they had a lot of issues with it hemorrhaging money. So I'm sure he'll fix that because I think that's what he's good at. I do not think he's good at the media side, though.
No. Do you ever see the movie The Secret of My Success?
No.
With Michael J. Fox?
No.
Well, okay. Well, I highly recommend it because it's a great movie.
Give it a watch.
But basically, he's a young kid, hotshot out of college, wants to get into big business, right? And so basically, they're in some financial trouble. They're possibly going to get taken over by a rival company. And the thought process from the board is let's sell off, let's cut down, let's pare. And Michael J. Fox's character is, no, you got to buy, strengthen, spend money. And that's the Iger philosophy, right? He spent a boatload of money, much more money, I think, than Disney maybe even wanted him to. But he strengthened the company's position by doing so.
I remember when he bought Lucas, $4 billion.
Yep.
I remember reading articles that said R.I.P. Disney.
Yep.
And within a year, he made that back and an additional, I don't even remember. It was just, $4 billion was so undervalued for that property.
Mm-hmm.
But now you give it to someone that has money and it has potential. But then what do you do?
Yeah. Well, then you put it in the hands of ultimately the worst possible person that could have been handed the keys to that car.
I don't understand because she's a Spielberg prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you go from working with him to kind of producing what you've produced with Star Wars.
And an underling of Lucas for many years.
Right. It's not like they, she came out of left field.
Yeah.
she's been, grown in the tank, so to speak, and I just don't understand why there's so much hate towards kind of the heroes that we love.
The irony of it all is the person that was groomed to be that successor and should have the most love other than Lucas himself for this is the person who seems to hate it the most.
Like, and all the characters.
Yeah.
Luke, Indy. When I read the article that said that they were going to make Indiana Jones 5 about time travel,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to erase Indy, I don't want to lose the heroes that I grew up with. I care about them. They helped shape who I am as a person. And for you to tell me that they're wrong makes me feel, as someone that cares about this content, right? When you tell me that you hate them and they're wrong, and then I start to question if maybe everything I've built, these heroes that have kind of showed me what's good and what's bad, maybe my ideals are wrong as well.
Well, the problem, what's wrong, and this is across the board, right? Is these characters that have become iconic, that have transcended the movies, right? Because Star Wars has transcended the movies. Indiana Jones has transcended the movies. Marty McFly, Back to the Future, Ferris Bueller. These characters are not just movie characters. They are in the zeitgeist of pop culture through many generations, right? They've transcended, and they've become not only so iconic and beloved, but they're ingrained in, every generation. They're ingrained to love and respect them for who they are, what they represent. And for you to sit there and want to take that away from everybody and just strip it because other than you want to do it, not because you have to do it, not because it's something that is demanded, you want to do it for no reason. That is what the real problem. And that's why I think there's so much hatred towards somebody like a Kathleen Kennedy, because she has not only does she have no respect for the character, she has no respect for the creator, she has no respect for the fans, the millions of fans that love these characters.
And the thing is even taking out what I said, where it's about, these people showed me right and wrong, moral compass, and they did. They were, it was a way to identify what the right way to live. These are good guys fighting against bad guys. Taking that out of it and just looking at it as purely escapism. The reason that people are so passionate about this is they use it as a way to get out of how horrible their lives are.
Right.
And for you to sit there and say, no, we're going to bring some of you thought Luke was great? No. I don't want that. There needs to be beacons. And I can't see a reason that we need less escapism with the way things are currently trending. So for you to take away these classic kind of archetypes and tell me they're wrong or they were weak the whole time or whatever it is, you're bringing about animosity. And there's some people will direct it towards the company. But I think, honestly, at the end of the day, it comes down to you're in charge of all of these properties. It's your responsibility to foster them and bring them to the next generation.
I had no problem with Rey, right? Like you want to make a female lead. You made us choose. You said Rey's the best, Luke sucks, choose, and everybody chose, and they chose Luke for obvious reasons, but you made us do it. You didn't have to make us do it, but you forced us to do it.
And I think the real moment that stands out to me is in The Mandalorian, when we saw him. And I just remember the reaction.
Yeah.
People were excited.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone, and that's probably not fair, it just didn't feel the same at the end of episode 9.
Right.
And that was a TV show. So just the buzz that generated from that one scene should have been the beacon for them. Just the flare. And it seems like it still wasn't enough.
No. And look, here's the thing, right? In the 70s and 80s, the diversity and inclusion wasn't what it is today, right? And yes, going forward, can we be better? Sure. Should we be better? Sure. But that doesn't mean that everything that was done before that is wrong. We can accept the fact that we should be better going forward, but we should still honor, love, and respect the things that came before us, and not just all of a sudden say it's wrong because what we were doing then is wrong and now we know better. Yeah, we know better now, but that doesn't strip away what was there, what was done prior. And again, both can exist. We don't have to choose. We can just be better with how we go forward in making it more inclusive. But again, she wants to, Kathleen Kennedy, make us choose which one we want. And every time she's done it, she's lost. And yet she continues to do it, and loss after loss is piling up. And everybody just looks around and says, oh, geez, that sucks. But it's like, okay, but you know the reason why it sucks. Why don't you fix it?
So for me, I think it kind of ties in even more so to the argument I made earlier about these things being for children, right? Mm-hmm. You can make adult-themed content in these universes for adults. It doesn't all have to be for children. And then what you allow the fans to do is grow up with the characters. Mm-hmm. I don't always need it to be as simple as good versus evil. I prefer, in the content that I consume today, I like the gray. I like when it's complex and it's hard to tell who the hero is. You can do that in the Star Wars universe. And can the kids watch it? No. But guess what? The kids are going to grow up and they're going to want it at some point. But there seems to be just such a divide on what we can have. You can't have them both. It has to be these two different extremes. Either you lose all of your heroes and we totally wipe the slate and we do all of these different, things, or you don't, and now it's just a whitewashed sort of landscape like how it was, which I think, to your point, is not even remotely close with how we should be trending.
No.
I think you can have both as far as the adult and child themed content. I think we should have the more diversity in any of it, the better. Yes. Because you're opening up the amount of actors that can play these roles is larger, so the talent that comes in is greater. We're always better, integrated, united, everything than we are separated. I agree with that 100%. I just don't like the fact that she wants to draw a line in the sand and say that Luke is a villain.
But that's, but here again too is we have to look at the character, right? Most of these characters, especially in a lot of your superheroes, have been around a long, long time. And they've been building up fan bases over decades. So you cannot, the reason why they're so iconic is for what they've done throughout the years. And you can't just all of a sudden say, you know what, I'm just going to change everything there is that you know about these characters just for forced diversity. And because we're making it diverse, you have to accept it. And here it is. And now this is the way it is going to be, because that's not what everybody wants. That's not why they love this character in the first place. So you know what? You keep that character the way it is, and you change and add to where you can, which doesn't change what the character is, what it represents, what it means to the general public.
I think here's my point to it all, is that I would much prefer new characters. You bring them in. You still have your old set of characters that, your foundationals, a lot like Iron Man, right?
Yep.
Tony's gone.
Yep.
There's no reason that the foundationals have to stay around forever in these cinematic universes.
Right.
But to a point, I don't want to lose the characters that I grew up with. And if you can bring in new characters instead of just trying to do these, they feel like tricks to me. Oh, what can we do? Oh, let's do a gender swap, or let's do this or that. And it's like, no, give me a new character that I can care about, and it doesn't feel like a forced diversity. It always feels like such corporate trickery when they do these things, because they're trying to check off a box. They don't care about the property. They don't care about the hero. They care about selling toys. Right. And to me, who cares about these stories and these heroes and villains, I would prefer new characters that I can love, as opposed to you trying to be corporate slick guy and doing a diversity swap. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because there's no heart to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, all Marvel is about to give you is somebody else wearing somebody else's clothes.
Right, and that's lame. I want to see new characters. I want to see characters that, I'm not even saying like pulling from the B list. Give me new characters. The coolest thing that came out of Capullo and Snyder's run is Batman Who Laughs. Hands down. Brand new character. Brand new. And he is the coolest thing to come out of that. You can create new characters. You can, and they can function in the universe.
Yeah, Marvel has it where they don't have to create new characters because they have so many characters. They can just give you other characters that already exist, but they are new to the general public because they haven't developed them to the cinematic universe yet. So to everybody else, they're new, but you don't have to. I don't have to replace Hawkeye with Kate Bishop. I don't have to replace Iron Man with Ironheart. I don't have to replace the Hulk with She-Hulk. I can, you can give me more Guardians of the Galaxy, where these are characters that for the most part no one even knew of until that movie came out.
They're the hottest characters.
Right. Marvel has thousands of those type of characters in their library that they can give you that aren't just another generation of what we already had, because
It gets boring.
well, not only does it get boring, but you've made us, again, you're making us choose, because if you do Ironheart, you have to compare her to Iron Man. You're making us choose which one is better.
That's what happened with Captain Marvel to an extent, is that she came on the scene and tried to be Tony Stark. And it's like, we already have Tony Stark.
Right.
We don't need Tony Stark again.
Right.
Just be Captain Marvel. And then, obviously, the way she kind of conducted herself outside of the movies and everything was probably not the best way to go.
Captain Marvel is a bad choice because she sucks in the comics and doesn't have a fan base. This is where you're just trying to make a character stick that doesn't stick anywhere. And that's problematic because she didn't have a fan base in the I'm not saying it has no fan base, but
No, but
overall
it's
is
not
very
a-
minimal.
Right. It's not a power. You know what it is? It's the thing for me about Marvel right now is I don't feel like there's any villain that you could introduce that could get me excited. Maybe Doom.
That's it.
I think if you brought Doom in, I would get excited. Anyone else? Maybe Galactus. Maybe. But I doubt it.
It depends on how you use them.
Right. I think Doom is the only one that has any potential to get me excited about the franchise again. But, that's the thing, is that Captain Marvel is not going to get me excited in a lot of ways that Superman doesn't get me excited about that. The only Superman stories that I'm into are the ones where he's struggling with the godhood, right? Like, that's the whole thing, is that him, coming to the realization that he could end the planet if he wanted to, and then finding, the reason to love humanity is sort of the best type of Superman flicks when he's fighting that sort of power.
Superman's a hard sell because, and you know,
It's safe.
Right. It's you know, he doesn't have any shitty qualities to him. He's just always the big blue Boy Scout, and he's always good. And it's very hard to tell those stories where Batman is easy because Batman is insane. He teeters the line between good and evil, you know, and he doesn't always play by the rule book where Superman does. And so,
but that's why you can create such interesting villains with Batman too, because if your hero straddles the line, then how do you create villain? It is because Superman's villains are all very much they're celestial beings that are trying to achieve whatever their goal is.
right.
But with Batman, you have just a myriad of characters that are, you know, there are human qualities to a lot of them.
Yeah.
Most of them, I would even say.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Superman's villains are celestial who are trying to take over the Earth. They're trying to enslave the population, and Superman needs to stop that.
Right,
Batman
or destroy it or whatever.
Yeah, Batman just doesn't want you to fuck up Gotham City. And he's, you know, that's it. Like, don't mess with my city. I want, you know,
Right,
I'm a protector of it.
There's
And
the unpredictability of the insanity that comes with it too.
right. Right.
And so now we're getting human stories. And I like Celestial, but it's like sugar. You can't use it for everything. I don't want every single threat to be a celestial threat. So if you bring Captain Marvel into the mix, you need people that can fight Captain Marvel, and there
Right.
are only certain things that can fight Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, Galactus would be one of those type, you know, yeah, you could say maybe Kang the Conqueror, right? There's some celestial beings that you can have.
Yeah, Kang would be fine.
But the problem is they're not Captain Marvel villains.
Right.
And,
And that's
there's no
what it is.
history there. So, they, you know, again, Marvel's adapting stories that are already been told. Those stories haven't. So, because
the
they
reason-
haven't, they're
the
not going to
reason-
develop them.
The reason why No Way Home did so well is because it was human.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't fighting aliens.
Right.
They were fighting
People.
characters from other universes, so you have your sci-fi element,
Mm-hmm.
but they were fighting humans,
Right.
you know, lizard aside. But
Yeah, but he's still a person
Sure.
underneath it
right,
all.
right. And my point is that I enjoyed Infinity War. I enjoyed Endgame. I think what they did to Thanos was a tragedy because I really enjoyed the fact that he was a relatable villain. And then you kill him and it doesn't feel good.
Right.
Because it doesn't fix what he did. And to me, I was like, oh, wow. They're finally having a message in these kind of superhero popcorn flicks that is deep. But instead of riding that, they needed the big battle at the end. And so it almost feels like they shoehorned in that Mad Titan. And I think it takes so much away from the character.
Well, you know, you mentioned No Way Home, right? And here's the thing, right? You have personal connections with the villains, right? Norman Osborn is the father of Spider-Man's best friend, who is
20-year-old movie too. So keep in mind, like the people that saw that are in their mid to late 20s at minimum.
Yeah, but you got like the Lizard. Dr. Connor is Peter Parker's college professor. He had, you know, a major connection to Dr. Octopus, right? These are personal connections. Yes, they turned into villains,
but they're not inherently evil either.
But these were people that actually were friends until they became enemies. But there was a personal connection built, which makes that fight so much more meaningful because Peter Parker doesn't want to fight these people because he, in a sense, loves these people. In most cases, he doesn't want to do it, but he has an obligation to do it. So him having to do it makes it more impactful. If Galactus comes from another universe and Captain Marvel has to fight him and she vanquishes him, oh yeah, great. Like, who cares?
How are you going to side with Galactus. And that's honestly the problem, is that they had something really special with Thanos, which I wasn't expecting. And I don't even think they knew.
No.
Because if you look at the earlier films, he's the Titan.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just a regular big bad that they're going to have to defeat at some point. But then when the Infinity Saga rolls around,
He is probably the second best villain. If they didn't do what they did in Endgame, he would be my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Killmonger is the best villain we've gotten out of Marvel.
yeah, again, because
Spider-Man
they were,
aside, I'm not counting
right,
Spider-Man.
but there were stakes because Killmonger had a personal connection
Right, but
to
he wasn't
Black
all
Panther.
good or all evil.
No.
It's just that his ideals may have been warped.
Yeah.
Which is what you could argue happened with Thanos. And those are the best villains. Because I don't care. Like, yeah, Galactus wants to eat your planet. Cool. All right. How do I relate to that?
Right.
There is
Yeah.
no relation. Even Brainiac, there's no relation to any of that sort of shit.
Right. Yeah. Starro.
Right.
None
How
of
do
the,
you relate to and then
Yeah.
they try to, right? They try to give you that weird little sympathy line at the end. It's like, shut up.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very difficult to be able to relate to
No, I don't
any
want-
of
I don't
those
fi-
type of
I don't feel bad-
extraterrestrial characters.
I don't feel bad for Starro. Fuck that.
No, you don't. But, there are certain villains that you're going to feel bad for because some people are just, again, you sometimes you're trying to provide for your family, right? And maybe you choose the wrong way to go about doing it. But in your mind, you're doing something, not altruistic, obviously, but you in your mind are doing it for the betterment of something, not just the betterment of your pocketbook or, you know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, if
or,
your
or,
point of suffering didn't exist, you wouldn't be doing this sort of
Right.
thing. It's not Joker who's doing this because this is what he has to do.
right.
That Joker's just running around doing this.
Yeah, I mean, again, but if you go by the Killing Joke as the ultimate, how the Joker became the Joker, Batman knows what happened to him, which is why he doesn't ever try to kill the Joker, because he knows the Joker's doing this not on his own free will. What happened to him caused it.
Right, he's a victim of circumstance.
Right, and so
Which is what Batman is.
Right.
And, that's a lot of the
right.
relation.
Do you have to stop him? Sure. But you also know that he's not doing it because he wants to do it. He does it because he has to do it because of what happened to him. And so that's why him and Batman always have that relationship where they're basically the other side of the same coin, right? That's exactly what they are. And so that's what makes the Joker such a great villain. But but again, when Kang the Conqueror shows up, okay.
Celestial.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is a time traveler.
And the thing is it's okay to have it. I'm not saying like I don't want any
No,
of that
you
stuff.
have to have
but I
it.
don't need it to be all we get now. And that's what it kind of feels like.
Well, that's pretty much all they have.
Right. Because for me, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't been particularly excited about anything since Endgame. And I thought Moon Knight was going to do it for me, and it didn't. It really didn't.
Well, Moon Knight was great if you suffer from that particular circumstance that he does with the multiple personalities from trauma, right? They do a good job in explaining it, right?
Right. And we cover
Right.
that. It's just that I don't know. That's not even where I was trying to go with it. It's more just I thought there was going to be more. I thought I was going to see something.
Well,
and
if you're a fan of Moon Knight you did not get.
not at all.
You got the
Well, like a little. You got like a little
yeah.
taste.
But Moon Knight was what you got was this is Mark Spector and this is the different personalities of Mark Spector.
And I'm not shitting on Oscar Isaacs. He did a good job.
No, he did a fine job for what he did. But if you wanted Moon Knight, if you were a fan, you wanted to see Moon Knight in full costume, beating the hell out of different, whether it be vampire, everybody wanted Werewolf by Night, right? I mean, that was ultimately where, because again, we were told we don't know if we're getting a second season, right? There's been no confirmation. They've not said one way or another.
But a lot of that is the danger that you run into by hiring these big names.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no guarantee. Like, it happened, for better or worse, it happened with Batman. No one expected Affleck to quit.
Right. Yeah, but you can always replace, you can always find another actor to play the role, if you want to continue making Batman movies or Moon Knight or whatever.
Man. I don't particularly care for the style they went with. Like, I liked Batman, I liked Batman Returns, and then when they started changing the character every couple of iterations, I stopped liking it because it doesn't work for me, because it's not as ambiguous as like James Bond, where it could be a code name, and that's why he keeps switching his character. No, it's fucking Bruce Wayne. So either you got to give me a brand new universe, or you better settle the fuck in and play Batman. I don't like, because it's all the same universe. Batman and Robin and Batman Forever and all that shit.
That's all the same.
I don't like.
Yeah, from Michael Keaton to Val Kilmer to George Clooney is the same Batman in the same universe.
I don't like it.
No,
and not just Joel Schumacher's, neon explosion,
which was disgusting.
Yeah, it was weird.
I mean, when you go from Tim Burton and that dark noir.
Yeah, but that's the point of it, is that they tried to go back to the way that it was, and it sucked.
Yeah.
And there were nipples everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I have a Batman credit card. Like,
he busted it out.
So Batman's your real name, and you were able to get credit based upon the name Batman.
I want to go even further.
So why can't I do that?
So Batman sat in a meeting with it, or on the phone with a credit card company, and they said, "Listen, Batman, we know that you have expenses. We want to give you a rewards card so that you can, get some more of your, utility belts as they wear out." And he said, "Yeah, that'll work for me."
Yeah. Oh, so your
What's
bank,
the APR?
Yeah, your bank is out of the Cayman Islands. Sure. Yeah. No, we'll respect that. That's totally legitimate.
We are going to need your social, though.
Yeah. Oh, my social. Yeah, I'm not going to give it to you. Well, okay. No, that's fine.
No problem.
Yeah.
We're gonna call it the Bat card too.
Yeah. Like again, it makes it really dumbs you down to the point of this is what we're presenting, right? We're supposed to, and again, but here's the thing, right? And I've said this a million times, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to bring up professional wrestling, especially the WWE right now. When they were in the Attitude Era, ultimately the biggest, most profitable era that wrestling has ever seen, there was swearing, there was blood everywhere, there was scantily clad women. The toys sold better than they do now. So don't give me that you have to water it down to sell toys to children, because they're going to sell toys to children. Even if you have a man and a woman on live TV having sex in the middle of the ring, those kids are going to go and buy the toys the following day, even if they didn't see the wrestling product.
Listen, the best depiction of children in cinema is It.
Yeah.
The modern day It. Because they fucking swear, and they're talking about all sorts of crazy shit. And if you think they're not...
Right.
Did you?
Yeah, of course.
Right. And how are you any different than them?
Right.
They have access to more information.
Right. I didn't have the internet growing up. I didn't have cell phones. I didn't have computer.
No, if I
couldn't
wanted to
get
watch
access
a boob,
to this stuff.
I had to go on the channel that was all scrambled and shit, and hope I could catch like a second of it.
Yeah.
They can just Google it.
Right. And so they have access to all this stuff. You're not stopping it from happening. So if you think that you're stopping it because you want to sell toys, because ultimately parents aren't going to allow their children to maybe they don't let them watch this stuff, but they're still going to let them buy the toys. So you don't have to worry about it, because your toys and your T-shirts are still going to get sold. Merchandise is not going to take a hit if you have R-rated content for superheroes or wrestling or whatever else, Star Wars. I don't care what you... Now, Star Wars doesn't really have the need so much for R-rated.
Yeah, but see, I like when they go a little bit more adult with Star Wars. I dig
me
it.
too.
I think it's cool. I want to see Darth Maul doing crazy shit, and I would have liked Mandalorian to have kind of skewed into that. Maybe not Mando, because the Baby Yoda thing does track, but like Boba should have been fucking hardcore, man.
Well, I mean, you know, Boba, you didn't even have pushing the envelope.
Right.
I mean, you could have had at least, even if you wanted to push the envelope, even if you said, look, this is as extreme on Disney as we can make it, then fine, okay, it's Boba Fett. You do that. I don't even think that would have been good enough, but give me at least that. You gave me...
Oh, he's not even...
What did you give me?
He's not even Boba Fett anymore.
No.
And that's the thing, is that they do this with everyone. They're doing it with Kraven the Hunter. Mm-hmm. They did it with Venom. They're doing it with everyone. Everyone has to be... They did it with Morbius, which I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it too eventually.
But they're doing it. Everyone is an anti-hero now. And it's like, no. There has to be villains that are cool.
That's it.
All right. So, Jim, give us a little bit of a plug. Tell us what you're working on.
Sure. Yeah. So right now I'm currently working on a creator-owned comic that I'm currently in the process of working my way through the inks. And so this is a horror comic that I've been working on here for a little while now. I'm hoping to have it finished by June. That is the goal right now. And then as soon as that gets finished, hopefully it's going to be everywhere where you'd be able to read and or buy comics.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for having.
All right, guys. So we do have Jim on the Daily Drop as well every Thursday. We kind of get out there and do the orders and have him kind of spit with us there too. So this has been another episode of Catalyst Corner, episode 3. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one.